For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. Wisconsin prisons have faced significant staffing shortages over the years, but that has had wide-ranging impacts on the inmates themselves. Short staffing leads to safety concerns, and those concerns lead to tighter lockdowns out of that necessity for safety. But this week, Governor Tony Evers announced that the state will be lifting some of those restrictions at two of the state's most tightly controlled prisons, the correctional facilities at Waupun and Green Bay. Joining us now for more on the conditions inside those prisons is Mario Curran, an investigative reporter working under a collaboration with the New York Times and Wisconsin Watch. And thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here. Thanks, Will.
So I'm kind of calling these colloquially lockdowns, but the DOC calls these more modified movements. Can you describe a little bit what we're looking at when we talk about these restrictions?
Yeah, sure. So as you point out, the Wisconsin Department of Corrections is referring to these restrictions broadly as modified movement. And it's a pretty broad term that can range from very restrictive to least restrictive, I suppose. So, at one end of the spectrum, we're looking at prisons like Waupun and Green Bay, which are under modified movement, but the way that they look generally fits with what experts consider to be a lockdown, what we consider a lockdown, which means that, in essence, movement of prisoners stops. Inmates are confined to their cells 24 hours a day. They are let out occasionally for showers and for recreation, but for the most part, their daily life exists in their 8x10 cell or whatever the correct dimensions are there. But then, the spectrum continues, and we'll have modified movement at a facility like Stanley, which is also under modified movement, but it looks very different. Stanley is a medium security institution. They are also being confined to their cells more often than typical. They're spending 18 hours a day in their cells and getting out to use the phones in the day rooms. But those restrictions have been going on at Stanley for over a year now. And so it can look very different, but the end result is that, the sort of daily routine that people who are locked up have come to depend on, whether that's, the routine in talking to their loved ones, whether that is going to educational programming, college classes, all of that gets turned upside down when there is a modified movement or a lockdown. And in the case of Waupun, that's been going on for 8 months, as we know.
And so before Tuesday, there are lockdowns impacting 3 prisons, as you mentioned before. Do you have a sense of how many inmates that would affect?
Yeah, so we are looking at least 3 prisons, at least 4 prisons. One that hasn't been reported widely, Wisconsin Secure Detention Facility, is also under a modified movement. So we're talking at least 4 prisons, thousands of inmates. Waupun, for example, has 1,000 inmates roughly there. And so it really has a wide-ranging of impact already that we know of. And in other ways, we don't know the true scope of this problem. And the reason we don't is because modified movement can mean a lot of things. It can mean altering the schedule of a prison, for a day, 3 days, 4 days. And those aren't considered formal lockdowns necessarily. And so it becomes difficult for the Department of Corrections to tell us exactly how many prisons are impacted. But we know that in ways large and small, this is something that is impacting prisons across the state system.
And so as we mentioned before, staffing is certainly a big part of this. Do you have a sense of, you see these stats where might be 50% vacancy in some of these facilities. Do you have a sense of across the board in Wisconsin how bad the staffing issue is?
Yeah, when we look at the data, we see overall we're looking at about a 33% vacancy rate. And as you mentioned, it's much worse at some prisons. Waupun, for example, around 54 currently, 54% vacancy rate, meaning more than half the positions for correctional officers are going unfilled. The other part to that question is interesting. It's even though we have these broad numbers and we can kind of get a sense of what that means, we don't know exactly what that looks like on the ground on any given shift. So we hear testimony from correctional officers, especially last year, as there was an effort to raise pay for correctional officers, starting pay. We have anecdotes of having to supervise or provide security for hundreds of inmates. On a given night when workers may be by themselves, which is a safety concern if backup cannot get there, if there is a security incident. And so this is an issue that does impact prisoners, as we've talked about and as it has been written about, but it is certainly one that is of serious concern to Department of Corrections staff themselves.
Mario Cran, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When we come back, the Madison City budget passed this week. And what were some of the provisions in the next fiscal year that stand out? Chris Stanford sits down with the Madison mayor when we come back.
This portion of News 3 Now is sponsored by Madison Gas and Electric.
You're the people who make junk disappear?
We brought a whole truckload of magic.
1-800-GOT-JUNK, I love you.
We make junk disappear. All you have to do is point.
This is the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, and it responds to snoring, so you don't have to. So no more nudging your partner or sleeping on the other side of the house, because the Tempur-Ergo Smart Base actually detects snoring, then automatically adjusts to help reduce it all night, every night.
Save up to $500 on select Tempur-Pedic adjustable mattress sets and get a $300 gift. Denver Mattress, the easiest way to get the right Tempur-Pedic.
At Informed Choice Insurance Agency, we're proud of our 5-star reviews.
My agent Matthew explained everything about Medicare and the needed supplemental insurance. He took the time to show me several different plans and the plus and minuses of each policy.
Andrea was amazing, from her knowledge to her presentation to her skills in navigating complicated and intimidating waters. I cannot emphasize enough how much she helped me and my family.
Need help with your Medicare or Marketplace health plans? Get 5-star service at Informed Choice Insurance Agency.
Let's get real clear. If you have psoriasis and are experiencing joint pain, it could be psoriatic arthritis. Both are believed to be caused by excess inflammation inside the body. Get real with your dermatologist and ask about Real Clear Skin today.
You're the people who make junk disappear?
We brought a whole truckload of magic.
1-800-GOT-JUNK, I love you.
We make junk disappear. All you have to do is point.
Welcome back. This week, the Madison Common Council approved the city's 2024 budget. Now, under the document, property taxes go up by just less than 4%. Now, at the same time, Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway told each city department to cut their budgets by 1%, citing a long-term forecast that she calls, quote, pretty bleak. News 3 Now this morning, anchor Chris Stanford sat down with the mayor to talk about their priorities for the budget cycle and what the city can expect in future budgets.
You said the financial forecast is rather bleak.
Yeah.
Pretty bleak. So you're trying to cut where you can at the moment. You've asked city departments to make a 1% reduction in their budget. But at the same time, you're still trying to push a lot of progressive projects forward that you've been working on. Why?
Well, we're trying to do what the city needs, right? And it's our responsibility to provide the basic services, public safety, public works, libraries, parks, that our community needs to continue to be a place with a really high quality of life and where people want to live. We are seeing that. Our population is growing very rapidly. We're at, I think, 286 something thousand now, which is both that represents growth, but it also represents an increasing pace of growth. And in order to absorb that population growth, we really do have to keep expanding our services and, ideally, absent the constraints, we would be adding staff to key services like streets, like public safety, like libraries, like parks, even some of the internal work. You think about, as you add staff, you have to add more HR capacity and more IT capacity. But we, as a city, for a good decade, a little bit more than a decade, have actually been behind where we should be in increasing our workforce. We're about 10% less city staff per capita than we were a decade ago. And that has an impact on the services that we can provide to the public.
You've had critics in the right-wing media slam the city for defunding police. What would you say to someone who sees the headline of a 1% reduction in departments, this reduction in spending for public safety? What would you have to say to those
They
people?
should come and actually look at our budget. It's a really good talking point for the right wing, but it's completely non-factual. We haven't reduced our commissioned force. We have only asked police to take the cuts that every other department has taken. And if you actually look at pure dollar figures, the police budget has gone up every year. And that's in part because our cost to continue across the entire city goes up every year, right? So it costs more to pay for health insurance. It costs more to give people a cost of living increase. It costs more to purchase services. These things go up with inflation, and so they go up every year. And so the budgets of each and every department, including the police department, go up every year. Now, the constraint that we're in is that while those costs increase, just like everybody's household costs increase, at the very same time, the state legislature is saying to us, you can't actually raise enough money off of the property tax levy to cover those costs. So they are putting us in a situation where we have insufficient resources to continue providing the basic services that we need to provide to our community. And we got the lowest or second lowest percentage increase in shared revenue from the state. It's a paltry $2.8 million in a $400-something million budget. So that's not going to close the gap. And we are left trying to do what literally every city administration has done since 2012, which is fill the gap that the legislature has created for us.
Yeah. I think that's something that some people will overlook because there were headlines like this local funding in the state budget, and all these, the state was going to distribute all this money to local municipalities, and the reality is, Matt, you're saying Madison didn't see a very big chunk of
we
that.
came out on the absolute bottom of the list. Again, we're got the second smallest increase in the state, and it's also true that the numbers just aren't really that big. So even the places that got larger increases, percent increases than we did, it's not actually that much money. And it doesn't ultimately solve the problem.
Let's talk bigger picture. As far as the financial constraints go, tightening back budgets this year, what do you see looking ahead to 2025, 26, 27, in the years ahead? Are these going to be tough times looking forward?
I think they will, unless something changes at the legislature. I would say, though, really the roots of this go back to former Governor Walker and Act 10. And so every year since 2012, we have had a structural problem in our budget, which we have sort of filled in various ways. And we haven't really talked about it. I think my administration has been much more transparent about the challenges that were created by Act 10 for local governments and the ways in which we're trying to solve them. I will say that really every year, in addition to sort of trying to find other sources of revenue, the city has found efficiencies, made cuts, delayed construction or purchases in order to try and continue to close that gap. And every one of my budgets has done that as well. I've done some really interesting things. I think, just for example, the Public Works team Used to be that folks in engineering and folks in streets and folks in parks would all hire seasonal employees to do the work in the season that they needed. So it might be streets would need it when it snows, parks would need it in the summertime, right? Streets might need people to help collect leaves and so on, right? But each of them would do a separate hiring process. Now we have a team where we're hiring full-time folks, which makes it a better job, and they will rotate between those agencies based on seasonal need. It both helps us attract the workers that we need, but it's also more efficient and saves the city some money. So we are really encouraging agencies to get creative, to get innovative, to find those efficiencies, to find ways that we can save money going forward. And I would say we've done that, certainly every budget that I've been involved with, but I think many budgets before that as well. We will have to continue to do that going forward. And I'm always asking managers to think about where are the places that we can be more efficient. But the truth is that because of what the legislature has done to us, we are going to have some bigger gaps between our cost to continue and what we can put on the levy limit going forward. That's going to be a challenge for our community, and we're going to have, I think, some tough conversations about what level of service we expect and can deliver, and where are the places where we might not be able to deliver the same kind of services that we have in the past, and how we might, in addition to getting more efficient about that, maybe target our services better to the folks that really need them, or what else? I'm not sure. This is a conversation going forward. I'm really trying to get through this budget before we think too much about the 25 budget.
Assessments have gone up over the past few years. Property value assessments have gone up.
Yes.
So those can go up on their own. The legislature doesn't have anything to do with what you can assess a property for.
Well, I would say the state sets the rules, but they don't, they don't dig into specific properties.
Sure. Right. So, like, if my house is now assessing for, 15% more than it did a few years ago, which is, that's happening often.
Mine too.
Yeah. Doesn't that bring in more money? Isn't that new money for Madison?
Well, so first of all, there's a relationship between your assessment and the mill rate. So your taxes are not going up 15%, even though your assessment went up 15%. So we're not actually bringing in that much new money. So, yes, a little bit, but not to the extent that you would think.
When we come back, a busy week at the state capitol as lawmakers wrap up most of their business for this year. We'll join Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporter Jesse Apoyan from the Capitol with the highlights when we come back.
It's Black Friday now at A1 Furniture with savings up to 40% off our everyday low prices and amazing doorbuster deals. Get this queen pillow top mattress just $299. Plus, get 48 months free financing on purchases over $999. Black Friday on now at A1 Furniture and Mattress.
Every accident is different. Different driving conditions, different injuries, different life circumstances. The insurance companies often use these circumstances to avoid paying you what you deserve. At Gruber Law Offices, we know how insurance companies can take advantage after an accident. Trust our experience and history of successfully helping our clients. And remember, there is never a fee until we win. Call Gruber Law Offices today. One call, that's all.
Think all Medicare plans are the same? Think again. A Medicare Advantage plan from Dean Health Plan gives you the benefits you need with premiums as low as $0 a month. Medical, hospital, and prescription drug coverage comes with $0 copays for primary care doctor visits. And extra benefits can help you save even more. Get preventive and comprehensive dental, $250 for eyewear, and $750 for hearing aids. Plus, you can save on over-the-counter health and wellness items. All this and a free fitness membership at more than 20,000 locations. Call 1-866-249-1748 now to request your free Dean Health Plan Medicare Advantage Guide. That's 1-866-249-1748. Dean Health Plan, right here with you.
It's Black Friday now at A1 Furniture with savings up to 40% off our everyday low prices and amazing doorbuster deals. Get this 3-piece sectional just $8.99. Plus, get 48 months free financing on purchases over $9.99. Black Friday on now at A1 Furniture and Mattress.
Welcome back and welcome to the state capitol here. Lawmakers have wrapped up most of their business for the year with a pair of floor sessions earlier this week, and joining us now to break it all down is Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporter Jessie Opoyan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here, Will.
So the breaking news of the week, obviously, Brewers have a new manager with Craig Counsell moving to the Cubs. Oh yeah, and they also have some stadium funding that passed the legislature this week. Came kind of down to the wire with some like late night negotiations. What happened there?
So this passed the Assembly a while ago with pretty overwhelming bipartisan support, but it really stalled when it got to the Senate, and they were still negotiating Monday night. Spoke to some senators around 5 o'clock. They were expecting a late night and got in here Tuesday morning. They reached a deal. They secured a couple of things that Democrats were looking for in order to get their support because there weren't enough Republican votes to pass this. So those key things were expanding membership on the Stadium District Board to have local representation from the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, and then further efforts to reduce the state's contribution by kind of escalating, ramping up a graduated surcharge on non-Brewers tickets.
So if you're going to like a monster truck rally or something, or a Taylor Swift concert perhaps.
Or a Taylor Swift concert,
yes.
Fingers crossed.
Right, exactly. What would that look like for a consumer?
So it's going to start off as just a $2 surcharge, and then over time, gradually, that'll be $3, and then it'll go up to $4. And then if you're buying tickets in a luxury box or a suite, then I think that starts at $8, and then also kind of gradually increases over time.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to watch Taylor Swift concert, though, not in the luxury boxes.
I think that's right. I think you have to be in the action for that. As someone who has attended, though, and sat in the nosebleeds, there's really not a bad place to watch.
There you go, yes. I was also fascinated kind of on like the vote lines, because as you mentioned, it wasn't like all Republicans, all Democrats. It's kind of a mix of both. Have we seen stuff like that before recently?
And it was really interesting. I mean, we actually saw that breakdown on a couple other bills that the Senate took up that day on some alcohol regulation stuff. But no, it was interesting when you had some Milwaukee area Democrats who still felt like it wasn't a good enough deal and voted against it. It was a 19-14 vote, and it really just broke down across some really interesting party lines.
And this is one of the rare pieces of legislation we're expecting the governor to sign, possibly, too, right?
Yeah, he's on board. I think he's going to do it probably as soon as possible, so we got to actually wait for the bill to get to his desk, and then he has said he'll sign it. And I think the Brewers are looking forward to focusing on sports again and their new management and getting those repairs going.
Passing out of both chambers this week was an overhaul to how alcohol is regulated here in Wisconsin. We weren't necessarily expecting to see that brought to the floor on Tuesday.
That was a little bit of a surprise. It was done in a pretty procedurally creative way, so this got brought to the floor actually as an amendment to a mostly unrelated bill. We actually saw a little bit of procedural drama, which can be kind of fun. We had the Senate president actually said that it was not properly before the floor, and then we had a majority vote to actually reverse that decision, which almost never happens in the Senate. Once again, saw some really interesting cross-party alignment on that, and actually had Democrats and Republicans working together to introduce some amendments, none of which actually went through, but they kicked that back over to the Assembly, and that's on its way to the governor's desk as well.
And to see some, like a new agency in DOR, some changes to wedding barns. But this is not the first time that we've seen alcohol regulation be floated in the Capitol. It's been around for a while, right?
It has been revisited over and over and over again. There's a lot of different interests involved here, right? You've got distributors, you've got retailers, you've got the actual, producers themselves, you've got taverns, you've got restaurants, you've got the wedding barns. A lot of interest to get at the table to come to an agreement. They've been trying for a very long time to do this, and they finally got there. Still not everyone is happy. As you mentioned, the wedding barn owners are really unhappy with this bill. It's going to restrict a lot of what they can do, but when you can get all of those different lobbying groups and lawmakers and the governor's administration together on something like this, it's pretty rare to make that happen. And alcohol is obviously an important industry in Wisconsin, also very difficult to regulate, very complicated system.
And of course, we cannot forget brandy old fashioned passing in the state assembly. That is the official state cocktail in Wisconsin. How do you like yours?
Well, I've recently was turned on to the debate over the savory accent as the garnish, and I have to say, better than I thought it would be. But you know, I'm usually a press girl, and I gotta be honest, I kind of prefer it with bourbon.
Interesting. I'm with you. Bourbon's always good. I'm a neat guy, so with the soda, that makes it a little interesting for me. Well, Jesse Poyen with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, thanks so much for joining us.
Shopping online for a Purple mattress? We get it. With Purple's unique Gel Flex grid and multiple foam layers, you'll experience effortless sleep that's motion adaptive, temperature balanced, pressure relieving, and ultra supportive. But which Purple mattress is right for you? Come to Denver Mattress and test for yourself. And during our Black Friday sale, get a deep deal on your deepest sleep with up to $900 off Purple mattress and adjustable base bundles. Shop Purple at Denver Mattress, the easiest way to find your perfect Purple.
People across Wisconsin are enjoying the rewards, stability, and flexibility of a career in healthcare. Why not you? WIS Caregiver Careers can get you started as a certified direct care professional. You'll learn the skills you need to make life better for older adults or people with a disability. All training is free and online, plus earn $500 in bonuses. Start your new career. Sign up today at wiscaregivercdcp.com.
There's a reason big dental bills often come as a shock, because sometimes you don't realize what's not covered until you get the bill. That's why affordable dental insurance from Physicians Mutual is important. It can give you benefits that go beyond what you get from more limited coverage plans. Because no one likes a big dental bill, especially if you're retired or on a fixed income. For a free information kit, call or go online now. This isn't some discount plan or preventive-only coverage. This is real dental insurance that helps cover over 350 procedures, like cleanings, fillings, crowns, bridges, root canals, even dentures, at any dentist you want. Dental insurance from Physicians Mutual Insurance Company helps cover preventive care, basic work, and major procedures, with no deductibles and no annual maximum. For your free information kit with all the details, call now or visit sendinfokit.com.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
Welcome back. It's perhaps Wisconsin's favorite drink, the Brandy Old Fashioned. Now, under new action from the state assembly this week, that concoction is one step closer to becoming the state's official cocktail. Now, why brandy? That harkens back to World War II, when the grains used to make whiskey were in short supply. And muddling the fruit here, that's to cover up Prohibition-era alcohol that was not very high quality. Now, the resolution making the Brandy Old Fashioned the state's official cocktail must still pass the state Senate. That does it for us this week. I'm Will Keneally, and Slantia to all those old-fashioned drinkers. It's coffee, I promise. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
This has been For the Record.